Welcome back to another episode of Season Three's TBI Uncovered. I'm your host, Erica Renee, and I'm a TBI survivor looking to change the world one story at a time. TBI Uncovered is a platform that allows both traumatic and brain injury survivors, gunshot survivors, stroke survivors, AVM survivors, survivors of race conditions, survivors alike, the disability community, caregivers, medical professionals, organizations, and anyone suffering with brain injuries to share their stories and provide tips plus resources and bring awareness to those impacted. My. We have a guest today. He's someone who's no stranger to emergencies. He was a frontline worker, paramedic, and essential worker. He's also the CEO founder of Penton Pending Consulting Solutions. I'm gonna say it again. He's the CEO and founder of Penton Pending Consulting Solutions and has a host of certifications, one being a certified stop the bleed instructor. Let's welcome the FireMedic changing the world, Larry Penton. Hi, Larry.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much. I got chill bumps right now. We us first responders, we kind of shy away from like the limelight and all this stuff. So
Yeah,
when we get accolades, it's like we just kind of feel weird because it's like I'm just doing my job. So I
yeah,
still feel like I'm doing my job even though I'm retired.
absolutely. And it's still necessary. So it's still a vital
Right.
part of what goes on today. So I appreciate you and thank you for your honor that you do. Welcome to season three of TV Uncovered. Thank you for being my guest and joining me today. And thank you for your services, especially your service as your service in such a pivotal time during COVID. It's been crazy. I don't know if it's as bad now as it was like 2020, but I thank you for standing the gap and being an essential worker and helping people who were in need. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. How are you doing today? Like, how are you doing overall? Like, how's your day going?
Every day that I wake up on this side of the dirt is a great day.
That's
No
right.
matter what ups and downs, trials, tribulations, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. I
Mhm.
always say every day that I wake up on this side of the dirt is a day that I'm still destined to do stuff.
That's
The day
right.
that I don't wake up on this side of the dirt, I'm good. I'm done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no complaints for me because obviously my work is done here on this
Mm-hmm.
side of it. So
The
I got
purpose.
to look at it like that.
I love that. It's still purpose. You stay at a purpose when you wake up. So I like
Right.
to look at it like that. So I want to begin by introducing yourself and explaining what a fire medic is. I've never heard the term before myself until you. So could you tell my viewers who don't know what a fire medic is?
Well, I'm Larry Penn. Most people refer to me as LP. That started because I got a tattoo on my arm that has LP on it. So,
Okay.
uh, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri,
Mhm.
and that's where I was born and raised and worked and practiced and all this stuff. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. We'll talk about how I got here.
Okay.
So I got into EMS in 2006, and the term fire medic is a combination of firefighter and paramedic
Okay.
because I was both. Started off as a paramedic. Well, started off as an EMT,
Mhm.
got my paramedic license, and then worked for a fire department. And so, fire medic is just a collaboration of both of those words.
Okay.
And so, I use it a lot because I hate saying firefighter, paramedic. I just say fire. You know,
Right.
and for me, when I talk to people about the differences in EMS, because I say the providers are a different level of licensure. And they're like, what do you mean? And I say, well, all paramedics are EMTs, but not all EMTs are paramedics.
That makes sense. Okay.
It's based on your licensure level. Like this chart behind me right here, this
Mhm.
is a cardiac chart. As a
Okay.
paramedic, I need to know everything on this chart, what it means when I'm doing the EKG and all that stuff. You don't get to do that as as an EMT in terms of, okay, I can understand what these lines and symbols and words are,
Yeah.
but how am I going to treat them? You
Mhm.
don't get that information actively in the field as far as treating those individuals as an EMT. That's where your paramedic training and licensure and certifications come into play. So EMTs do basic life support.
Okay.
I can do everything an EMT can do and then some. I can do intubations, putting a tube down somebody's windpipe. I
Mhm.
can do surgical cracks, surgically putting a hole in their throat and putting a tube in their throat. I can do medically induced comas
Really?
anywhere, in the
Wow.
alley, in the car, in the house, on the
What?
street, in the ambulance with two people. I'm one of them, me and my partner. And my partner doesn't have to be a medic either.
Well, okay.
Whereas in the hospital, you got like 6 to 8 people that are doing a medically induced coma based intubation. I can do it just with myself and one other person because I got the same equipment and the same drugs that they're going to use in the hospital.
Wow.
Just me and one, just me and another person. I can do defibrillation. So putting the paddles on somebody, when they say clear and the person,
Yeah.
I can do all of that stuff. And
Mhm.
then, so there's a number of procedures and technical clinical skills that you learn as a medic that you don't get on the EMT only level or EMT basic level.
Wow. I could dare headlights like, well, I never knew that.
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, when you have emergency situations, like, say for example, someone gets, since I've been shot, I'm gonna say shot. So,
Mhm.
do you use the you said pedals? You call them pedals?
Paddles. So
Paddles.
those are the paddles. So you put one here,
Mm-hmm.
you put one here, and you put one here on the side. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
don't use the paddles too much anymore. We use the sticky pad. So you put a sticky pad here, you put a sticky pad there, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes more content because you got to put like 25 pounds of pressure on if you're using the paddles. Now, the paddles are a backup because a lot of times you only have like, maybe 3 or 4 in your ambulance, but the paddles are always something that you can go to just in case that person is really hairy or they got a whole bunch of stuff on them and you got to wipe it off because they stick
Mm-hmm.
onto the body. So that's what the pads are for. But yeah, so when you're doing a defibrillation, that helps that person's electrical activity in the heart go back to its normal rate and activity. We call it automaticity. We want to make sure that that heart is generating its own electrical pulses like it's supposed to. Not doing this,
Yeah. Wow.
doing this. Not quivering or
Mm-hmm.
pumping slow or
Mm-hmm.
too fast.
Yeah.
You want it to pump at its normal sinus rhythm. And if it's not doing that at all, the paddles, the pads, they don't do anything. You got to do chest
Mhm.
compressions, you
Okay.
know. So
Wow. I'm learning like, wow, like so informative, so informative. What was your first job, or did you work somewhere else prior before being a paramedic?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm 51 now. I got in
Hmm.
the EMS in 2006. I was 37.
Okay.
For almost 20 years, about 20 years or so, I was an IT professional because as a kid, I was born in 71. As a kid, I was
Hmm.
a natural prodigy when it came to tech stuff. So when the first home entertainment system came out, the Atari 2600, I was hooked. I was a game fiend. I mean, I was stealing quarters out of my mom's bank and stuff or whatever. She had the house and everything because we had an arcade up the street. And I'm telling you, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to know how to make these games and all this stuff, whatever. I didn't get into the software side. My
Okay.
focus was on the hardware, so networking and all that. You know,
Mhm.
I know and learn how to build computers from scratch. So
Wow.
one of my sons always talks about that because I used to have all these computers around, all these parts. I was like a mechanic in a sense. And so we
Beautiful.
talk about this sometimes. But yeah, in 2006, I changed from IT to EMS. And that was due to two things. One, I was not happy with the job I was working, and I was in school to get my bachelor's degree for IT.
Okay.
And the other thing was 9/11.
Okay.
And people say, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, so this is 2006. So when 9/11 happened, I was a person just like a lot of people that was watching this stuff on TV.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly a couple things. One, I knew exactly where I was that day when it happened.
Mm.
I know the impact that it had on me watching the news stories. So there were two lines of volunteers from all walks of life after the buildings collapsed. And these volunteers were passing buckets of rubble down to clear ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, damn, I would love to be in New York just doing that because, you know, everybody kind of felt helpless. Like, I want to do something or what have you. And where I worked at the time, we could see the planes landing as they approached Lambert International Airport, which is the airport in St. Louis. We were in the flight plan. Uh, we were in the flight plan, and so when the FAA shut down all the airlines, because you would see planes every 3 to 5 minutes. I remember going outside on breaks, and I was like, "Man, it's so weird not seeing a plane." You
Mm-hmm.
know, with the landing gear going,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Man, that was just so weird." But for me, that was something that made me think, "Oh man, I people, even if it's just doing something like that." And the guy that got me into EMS, we met at church. He used to be he was one of the deacons, but he also is a nationally known and recognized paramedic instructor. And at that time, he was the chief paramedic of City Fire and EMS.
Mm.
He also told me, he said, I want to get more black and brown folks, men and women, into public service as far as EMS and fire. That sparked a whole nother lifestyle for me that,
Sure.
the rest is history.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see very many people of color who are EMTs. I think I see more now,
See more
but
now.
it wasn't always like that. When I was a little girl, I don't remember seeing very many people that you mentioned it. So, huh.
I talk about that actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. This not was what's today, the 25th,
25th, yep.
August 19th of 2019. I was featured in a major publication, U.S. News and World Reports.
Oh,
They
well,
did
okay.
an article. Yeah, they did an article, and it's still available online. You can, if you type up usnews.com and
Okay.
search either my name, Larry Penton, or the name of the article. It's called Diversity Emergency. They featured me in that article talking about this very thing about the lack of diversity in emergency medicine
Okay.
from the field or pre-hospital, which is the technical term for EMS, all the way to in-hospital. And it was me, it was my paramedic instructor, mentor, Monroe Yancey, and also Dr. David K. Tan, who is the head physician or the attending physician at a level one hospital in St. Louis called Barnes Jewish Hospital. And so they talked about a bunch of stats and different things like that. But I'm featured in that article and mentioned a number of times. That article also spawned a bunch of other studies. I think at least 40 since our last count.
40. Wow. That's a lot. That's a
Because it's
lot.
a big case study. It spawned a huge number of case studies. Because, like
Wow.
you said, and I talked about that. I said, hey, I don't remember seeing a lot of EMTs or medics
Mm-hmm.
that were black.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a great conversation, and we can talk about this later. That leads to STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big proponent of that because as a medic, as a fire medic, I cover two of those letters, science and technology. And I can tell you
Mm-hmm.
how you can make a great income, no degree, with only licenses and certifications.
Wow. You guys over there, what you do? Wow. Hmm. That was a whole mouthful.
Yeah.
Have you ever I think somebody asked you this on Clubhouse before because we've been on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
people don't know, we've been on Clubhouse. If y'all don't know how we met or whatever, but and I remember hearing Larry. I believe you were talking about a story of somebody, and so my question is, have you ever had to assist somebody that you knew that you had to help, and what was the experience like for you if you did have to?
not too many. My one of my greatest fears as a first responder in EMS was the fear of getting a call,
Mm-hmm.
showing up, and it's somebody that I know because you never
Mm-hmm.
know who the patient is going to be, or the patients. And so I actually had that happen one time.
Mm.
My ex-wife and I, we have twins. We have
Mhm.
6 children total, 5 boys and 1 girl, and the girl's the youngest. I got a call for a mouth injury one time at a historically black college and university in St. Louis, and there's only one in St. Louis. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. I show up there. Guess who the patient is? One of my kids, because both of the twins have, because I got twin boys, they both have braces.
Mm.
One of the twins, his inner lip was caught, so the meat of his inner lip was caught in the brace, and he could not get it out. Like,
Oh
and it
wow.
was so painful, whatever. And I
Ooh.
was like, oh my God, you know. And so
Mm.
when he saw me, he ran up and hugged me. And now we're sitting in the lobby area of the college. And so people are like, why are you hugging this dude? Like, because I come in there, I got my uniform on and the stretcher and all this stuff. And they're like, this, you know, he's like, this is my dad, you know. And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I told you I was because I was just an EMT then. I wasn't a medic
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was the only situation that I had with somebody that I know. And so we
Mm.
took him to the hospital. The nurse that was in the triage room actually
Mm.
had braces before, and he was like, "Oh, I can fix this." And he went behind the curtain, and about a minute later, he came back out. He was like, "Okay, we're all done. You need anything else? Because we got some other people in this waiting room because it was full." And I was like, "Oh my God," you know. So, but
Wow.
yeah, but seriously, I'm so thankful that I've had some close calls where, you know, I found out I just missed being on a call with somebody that I know. So
Mm.
it's, but here's the other thing. Regardless of that, every patient that I had, I treated them like it was somebody that I know, because there may be a situation where somebody that I do know is in an emergency situation, and I want that EMT, that medic, whatever that provider is, to give them that same level of care that I
Absolutely.
would if it was my own family member. That
Yeah.
was my mindset when it came to practicing medicine, because we practice medicine. We're not just technicians. We're not just ambulance drivers.
Yeah.
We practice emergency medicine.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's that. I'm glad you identified that and made it known. I do more than just drive the emergency truck. We actually medicine stuff, so there's more to it. Because I didn't know it was to this extent that you could do the the chest compression that you said the pedal device.
Defibrillation, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that it could be done. I mean, in the hospital setting, could that be done? So I'm learning so much beyond it. I didn't know EMT did so much. I didn't know that FireMedic. I didn't know that. So you're enlightening me in a whole nother way. So thank you for this knowledge that you've given me. So in the audience. So
Thank you.
appreciate it. What experience have you had with people who've had traumatic brain just like me?
And so when I was in St. Louis working, I worked for a paid fire protection district in St. Louis
Okay.
County, and I worked for a private EMS service, and that was based in St. Louis City, but we covered the Metro St. Louis area, including parts of the Metro East, so some parts of Illinois, like East St. Louis, Belleville, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as an EMT basic on a BLS unit,
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of encounters with transporting TBI patients. A lot of them were veterans, because the company I worked for had a contract with the VA. And
Okay.
so there were two. There was the VA hospital, and then there was Jefferson Barracks, which was in South County, of St. Louis County. And so we would transport a lot of TBI patients. That was the primary experience that I had with TBI patients, were
Yeah.
vets. And so we would transfer them from Jefferson Barracks to the VA hospital in the city for whatever care or treatments and different things like that, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it gave me a wealth of knowledge on neurological disorders, whether it
Mm-hmm.
was from genetics, whether it was from injury or trauma, or both. Uh, I have such a healthy respect for people that study neurology, who specialize in brain and traumatic injuries, spinal cord injuries, different things like that. So I love your your sweat, your hoodie with the
Thank
brain on it, and
you.
then I see you got the brain after your
Yeah,
IG name. You know that's important because everything starts up here,
it is.
and we got to take care of this because that is so essential for everything that we do in this world.
Hmm.
You know,
Wow.
so for me, it was something that with TBI patients, a lot of it was more transporting, but
Mhm.
in terms of treating people with those injuries, like if they were in a car wreck and they had a brain injury that we could obviously see. You know,
Mhm.
there were things that I am trained to do to deal with those particular injuries. You
Okay.
know, and the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, and all of these, the OTs and the PTs, and all of these individuals do some great work when it
Yes, they
comes
do.
to TBI.
Yes, they
I
do.
had a patient one time who had a TBI injury and he ended up getting drop foot, where people that are bed bound, you know, normally your feet are 90-degree angle.
Mhm.
And a person that is bed bound, typically what will happen is their foot starts to drop. So it's
Mhm.
more like this instead of like this, you know, at an
Mhm.
angle. And so he was going to this rehab center in St. Louis, one of the biggest ones, and we would transport him from home to this rehab facility. And
Mhm.
work that they did, oh my, I'm
Mhm.
telling you, his drop foot had decreased, so it started getting more tension in those tendons because you don't have any muscles in your feet; it's just ligaments and tendons.
Mhm.
So, or more tendons, I should say. Or
Yeah.
I'm sorry, more ligaments because ligaments are bone to bone. And so the work that they did to help him recover from his TBI, phenomenal,
Mhm.
phenomenal. And the family like loved us because we were. It seemed like we, myself and my partner, were the only ones that always end up transporting this guy 3 times a week.
Mhm. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad you had experience. I never knew much about the brain beyond, in school, you grew up in school in grade school, like the brain is center of the chain, sort of thing. It's the powerhouse of your, everything, whatever. Beyond that, but
Everything.
after that, it's like, okay, doesn't need to know anything. And then even high school, I don't remember, I don't know much about the brain in high school,
Mm,
and then part of college. I didn't know much about the brain until I got hurt. So I was forced, and I don't have to know much about the brain, but I want to, and it's like I need to know about something that affects me. So
absolutely.
why don't I want to learn about it? So know about it. Like you don't feel the need desire to know anything about something if it doesn't affect you or
That's right.
until it affects you. So I'm thankful that I know what I know about the brain. It's so much to the brain though, but I'm glad I know what I know now. It's been I like a game changer for me.
Absolutely. And that's wonderful that when was your injury? What year?
June 1st, 2008.
Okay.
Y'all wait. So it's been about 14 years. Been quite a
Wow.
while, but 14 years. Yeah, I'm still kicking. I ain't stopped to get to where I want to be. So yes. So it's been interesting experience to say the least. So you talk about the your emergency side. What about the firefighter side? What's your experience like as a firefighter?
My fire experience was relatively shorter
Okay.
because officially I started um, working at that fire department in 2019,
Okay.
2019. I was working there part time.
Okay.
However, that fire department that I worked for, I had known that fire department and a lot of the crew members for years because when I was in medic school back in 2008, I did a lot of clinicals at that particular fire department because they got a high call volume.
Okay.
And these, you know, they got their own ambulances, they got their own fire apparatuses and stuff. And so they St. Louis County is made up of 82 municipalities
Mhm.
and I think 3 unincorporated ones. We
Mhm.
cover 17 of those munis, and
Okay.
it was primarily black and brown folks because these municipalities were on the outskirts of the city. So um, for me, when I started working there, and I didn't want to do fire initially. When I got into EMS in 2006, I was like, I don't want to go into no burning buildings. Let those firefighters bring the patient out to me. I'll take them from that point, put them in the ambulance, and then we'll go en route. Then I thought, as I got more into EMS, I was like, man, I love seeing the rescue squads. So the rescue squads do a lot of the technical rescues. So
Mm-hmm.
certain types of extractions. If a truck went over an overpass and is hanging down barely, the
Mm-hmm.
rescue squad, they work for that fire department, but these are specially trained firefighters that have skills to do that. If a trench collapses,
Mm-hmm.
those squad members typically will go and set up all the apparatus and all the equipment to get that person down. If there's special equipment like a machine or something like that, they're going to be skilled enough to go in and do whatever to get that machinery off of that person or what have you. But you got to be a firefighter to do that because of the training and the certification you got to go
Okay.
through. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to bite the bullet. And again, I'm 37 when I get into it, so a lot of times, this is not an older person's game.
Mm-hmm.
Most people get into EMS at minimum at 18, and
Okay.
same with fire, 18 through their mid 20s. I'm 37,
You gotta
so I
be
was like,
fast. You gotta be
yeah.
fast. Mm-hmm.
But I look good, I feel good, I'm in shape.
You're
I got
shape
muscle.
too.
I got muscle. I work out and
Call
stuff.
me out.
So there's this test that you have to take. It's called the CPAT,
Okay.
CPAT, the Candidate Physical Agility Test,
Mm-hmm.
and that test is a bunch of stations that you have to do certain things in 10 minutes and 20 seconds or less. And so while wearing this weighted vest. And so you have to pass that. And so I did pass that. It took me a few times. Third time was a charm, but hey, pass,
Mm-hmm.
pass, no matter.
That's right.
So, and
That's
I,
right.
and I was 49 when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was able to do it. 2020 happens.
Mm-hmm.
We start hearing this stuff about what is this COVID, what
Got
is this?
it. Got it.
Oh man, I just hear all kind of stuff. I ain't got the COVID. What? Whatever the disease
Got
is,
it.
whatever this stuff is, I think I got COVID. I was like, okay. So
I've never heard of a before coffee.
yeah. So this is early 2020. This is right after Kobe died. On my birthday, so that's a whole nother conversation. So,
It
peace and
was.
blessings.
It was.
Yeah. So I'm getting ready to go to the fire academy April 13th to get my professional certifications.
Mm-mm.
Because I can work as a firefighter. There's certain things that I'm not able to do until I finish the academy. I'm
Mm-mm.
waiting. So March comes around. Now it's getting more serious. You're starting to hear more about COVID. All my patients are getting COVID. My coworkers are getting COVID left and right.
Mm-mm.
My wife has a number of autoimmune diseases, and she
Mm-mm.
gets sick very easy. My wife is from North Carolina. She grew up in Charlotte, and her family lives here in Charlotte. I'd say to her and my stepdaughter, who was uh, 15 at the time,
Mm-mm.
or 14 at the time, I said, why don't you guys go to Charlotte for about a week and just kind of hang out? Hopefully, this thing will kind of pass over, like some of the other things that we've seen, or whatever.
Right.
A week later, they did the worldwide shutdown. We were like, damn, what do we do now? And because we talked with her doctors with her medical issues, they said if she were to get COVID, she would probably die. And if she didn't die, she would be gravely ill. And if she
Bad.
wasn't gravely ill, she would definitely be hospitalized, maybe on a ventilator and some other things or whatever. Or
Bad.
she would have what we now know as long COVID and some other complications.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? I can get another job. I don't want to get another wife.
That's
So
right. That's
I'm
right.
out. Because again, I'm getting COVID patients left. I had the same COVID patient twice in 1 week.
So, but it take about five. It take about five. But I you see me give it. It take 5 days to no 15 days So how you see them?
That's a
You supposed
whole
to,
nother. That's a
supposed
whole
to,
nother. That's
well,
a
you,
whole. That's
well,
a whole nother conversation.
you supposed
I
to
was the
quarantine.
same
You're
way.
supposed to quarantine, but I'm just saying, like, it's crazy.
That's a whole nother conversation. I'm telling you, it was so. I'm telling you, I was getting COVID patients left
Mm-mm.
and right. I'm working 48-hour shifts, 2 days on, 4 days off at the firehouse, and when I'm not at the firehouse, I'm working at the EMS service.
Mm-mm.
Patients getting it, coworkers are getting it. I'm like, either and I never got COVID to this day. And so I said, well, if I get it, I can transmit it to her. If I don't get it, I can be a carrier and give it to her. Just being around folks or whatever. And so I decided to retire. We had plans to move to Charlotte in 2025, 26. We upped those plans. We came here. I said I was going to go to school to get my nursing license. To
Mm-hmm.
be a resident of the state for a year means that you don't have to pay the big out of state fees for school.
Cause. Okay.
So I said, I'm gonna just sit back for a year, chill out. You know, we're still in the heat of COVID and all that stuff or whatever, and go
Mm-hmm.
to nursing school. Two things happened. A buddy of mine wanted to start a business, and because of my technical background, I was like, I can help you create all the technical stuff, the social media platforms, the websites, and all that stuff. That happened in part, but then the business thing fell through for us. And then a nurse friend of mine wanted to do a business where, but she didn't know how to do all the technical stuff. I said,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that'd be a great business. I can help people with their back office stuff, kind of like what we virtual assistants. So that's how
Yeah.
the company started. I'm still licensed as a medic, and I still got a number of my certifications. And I said, because of that article in U.S. News and World Reports, I started
Mm-hmm.
getting pulled in to be interviewed like what you're doing with me now as a subject
Mm-hmm.
matter expert because I talk about all kind of stuff, public health, mental health, gun safety. I don't get into the 2A conversation or the Second Amendment stuff. I'm not a political science person. I don't get into the politics. I just talk about safety and training and education and all that stuff or whatever. Uh, I talk about men's issues a lot. I talk about anything related to EMS. And so
Yes.
I said, well, I can incorporate that into the company. And so that's how the company started. And then we got into doing podcasting. And I started networking with other people that I found on Clubhouse. So there's a number of podcasts that I'm a part of, and one is going to be coming up soon. I'm a part of a
Mm-hmm.
number of men's groups that are on Clubhouse and outside of that. I partner with a young lady. Her name is Kim Hobbs. Uh, she is the founder of Speak Sister Brother Speak LLC, and we
Okay.
deal with a lot of things in regard to men and women's issues. And so she and I have partnered together to go worldwide with this to help men and women deal with their issues, especially under mental health, because she's a certified life coach also.
Important.
And there's so many things that I got my hands in. You know, it works for my ADD. You know, I gotta, you
Keep
know,
you busy.
yeah. Well, Mrs. LP let me know that. She's like, "You got a little ADD." I was like, "Nah." She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Nah." She's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You're right. I'm gonna use that to my advantage, though."
That's right. That's funny. Oh goodness. So that was that's a lot, and our minds, people don't understand the importance of being in the right state of mind, having a sound mind. Like it's so important. Like you say, everything starts with our minds. Everything starts with our minds first, and we gotta have it.
That's right.
How,
Absolutely.
so how was it? Well, when you were in EMT, what was a typical day like for you? Like, how did you prepare for the day? Your mindset. How did you prepare your mindset for the day? Like, to see what you're gonna see, to do what you're gonna do. How do you prepare for something like that?
My instructor, who was my mentor, even to this day, that got me into EMS, Mr. Monroe Yancey,
Mm-hmm.
he told me very early on a number of things that I always put into effect, even to this day. He said, when you get a call, first thing you need to do when those tones drop, you get that alert on your smart device or whatever, or your walkie, check your own pulse.
Hmm.
Because if you all ratty and stuff, your adrenaline starting pumping, all that, you get that adrenaline rush, you're not gonna
Mhm.
be able to focus.
Mhm.
Take a few breaths, do a woosah, whatever you got to do some tapping or something like that, do some breath work, you know, get yourself in,
Yeah.
so when you saw me do that,
Listen up, yeah.
that was part of it. That was me getting myself ready for the interview because
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, because I'm all excited, I'm all excited and stuff or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
slow down a little bit or whatever. But that's part of again, the brain work that you got to do because I learned this also, and I say this as a first responder, especially on the EMS side,
Mhm.
I have to be the eye in the hurricane of your medical emergency. And I'm
Okay.
saying it again. I have to be the eye in the hurricane of your medical emergency because
Okay.
my patient is not just that person that's hurt, injured, dying, or dead. Those are the four things that we as first responders on the EMS side have to deal with: hurt, injured, dying, and dead. You as the patient, the caregivers, the bystanders, other first responders, all of those people are potentially my patient.
Mm.
I got to be able to listen to everything that's going on in that room, in that situation, or whatever. So and a lot of us that are EMTs and medics have this uncanny skill to be able to hear. It can be 20 people in the room. Even to this day, it can be 20 people in the room. I am listening to every conversation that's going on, and my
Mhm.
brain is filtering out the stuff that I don't need.
Mhm.
Now, we're talking about an emergency situation. So the screaming and yelling, the hollering, the crying, the whatever, the
Mhm.
people panicking,
That
people
blocks
all over
out.
the place. I'm sorry.
It blocks out. All that blocks out. You just
No,
do it.
I'm not blocking it out per se. I'm just I'm compartmentalizing
Gotcha.
because I need to figure out. I'm doing my assessment
Yeah.
because when I show up, I got to do an assessment and I got to figure out what needs to happen right now. Is this
Mhm.
a stay and play situation or a load and go situation?
Mhm.
Because it depending on which situation it is. If it's a stay and play, I got a little bit more time. I'm still doing stuff, but I got a little bit more time. If it's a load and go, hey, this person has an arterial bleed, they're spurting out. Put some
Mhm.
direct pressure on it. Let's put a tourniquet on it, and we got to go like yesterday. Oh well, I don't even know who this person is. We'll figure the crap out on the way there. Let's go. Or
Mhm.
hey, I just got some belly aches. It's been hurting for about a week. I don't know what's going on, but I think I need to go to the hospital. Okay, well, let's kind of do some tests and hook you up and do all of these little interventions here and there and all this stuff. Yeah, we can stay and play a little bit with that. Whatever. Maybe you've been non-compliant with your meds. Maybe you just need some Tums or something like that. Maybe you are dehydrated.
Mhm.
Maybe you got a food point. You know what I'm saying? It's not a load and go situation. Now we still might transport, but those are the things that you think about every day that you get ready to get suited and booted to go to the job. I
Mhm.
thought about that all the time, keeping those things in mind because that's going to help you be a better clinician. All of my licenses that I've earned and certifications that I earned, none of them have the word ambulance on it. So when
Mhm.
people call me an ambulance driver, it's a slap in the face.
Mhm.
Now, technically, and years ago, we used to be just ambulance drivers because we weren't required to know this stuff. We
All
weren't
this
required to know how to read EKGs and do defibrillations and do cricothyrotomies and do
stuff.
medically induced comas. So yes, we were, but we've advanced.
That's
And even
right.
to this day, every year, more and more is being added onto the skill set and licensure requirements for EMTs and medics. So don't call a medic and or EMT
Right.
an ambulance driver.
Okay.